Hi everyone. Very good evening everyone. Welcome to another FSM1 video welcome to another FSM1 event where we help investors to invest globally and profitably. First of all, thank you so much for attending the webinar this evening. Our topic today is retire from work and not from life. Let's begin the journey now. So retirement should be the beginning of something wonderful, a journey towards exploring new meaning to life, whether you are nearing retirement or planning ahead. This webinar is your getaway to a vibrant and rewarding future. So before the webinar begins, we have with us today Mr. Manho Karan, the Associate Director of Retirement Services at Principal Asset Management Berhad. Mr. Manho Karan has been working in the financial services industry for more than 15 years. He joined Principal Asset Management Berhad in 2013 and hold the post of Associate Director, PRS Retirement Services. Previously, he was attached with various asset management companies and with Principal Asset Management, continued to manage and drive distribution channel in the area of marketing, sales, and training. He graduated from University Science Malaysia and hold a degree in social science, majoring in economics and an MBA from Anglia Ruskin University, UK. He is also licensed by the Federation of Investment Manager Malaysia for the marketing and distribution of unit trusts as well as private retirement schemes. So before we get started, if you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to type them into the question box. We will have time for a question and answer session at the end. So without further ado, let us welcome Mr. Mahokaran. Mr. Mahokaran, over to you.
Hi everyone. Iwan, thank you. FSM, thank you for this opportunity for principal and also myself to be able to talk about a little bit about retire from work, not from life, right? I think this is something, it's a certainty. There comes a time when all of us actually have to retire and do other things in life also, right? So that journey, though we think that it will take some time, right? But take it from me, like you can see my gray hair, right? And I'm about to retire also. And this journey has been a different kind of journey, I guess, for me, right? And I'm sure for every one of you, the journey will be different. I'm not sure about the crowd here today, whether they are young or whether they are middle age or in the older category. So it's across the board, hopefully, right? So this journey actually it is for everyone, I guess, right? If you look at it, I think you all know the founder of KFC, right? Colonel Sanders, right? He actually started to come up with this idea and make this money from KFC and all. I think he was around 60 at the time, right? So for most of us would have been retired by that age, right? But this guy here, you see, he's just starting off the journey itself. So anyway, welcome to the session, and I'll run through a quick one, and hopefully at the end of the session, we can take away some thoughts and as to how we want to go about this journey actually, right? Now, again, as I say, some of you basically could be about to retire, or some of you could be just beginning your work life and all. Now, be it whatever stage of life that we are, right, we should always be thinking about being able to go to the next stage when the time comes for us to retire, right? Now, we should be able to embrace actually the full spectrum of life itself. And you begin this journey, right? This new journey and on a new highway, maybe at the point of when you're at the crossroads, right? I'm at 55 or I'm 60 or maybe I'm 65. I don't know, whatever is the time frame for you guys, right? So when the time comes for that, then you guys should be able to look at starting off a new beginning itself, right? Now, as per the title itself, right now, this retirement can actually we should really be truly something wonderful, right? A journey towards many a thing, many a splendor of things, right? Of course, there'll be a lot of what do you call that, bumps and all that you will actually have to cross over, right? Now, the key thing here is that for this to happen, right, you basically, all of us need two things, right? We need health and we need wealth. These are two key things actually. And also some questions that maybe we should be asking ourselves now itself, right? Looking at others, or what makes them happy as retirees, right? And how can I be happy in my case, right? How much time do I have, right? How do I gracefully retire, for example? These are some of the questions. How much do I need to retire, for example? The money part of it is so critical towards determining whether we are able to go to the next stage of our journey comfortably or not, right? The other thing is that some young guys might be asking, hey, I'm only 20 years old, why do I need to think about it? And should I be thinking about it, right? Now, I think you all know the power of compounding, right? Uh, that is actually the seventh wonder of the world. The younger you start, actually, right? Even if you're 20 years old, the younger you start, the smaller amount you put, but the compounding effect is so great that over time will actually ensure that your money, your returns are there by the time you actually retire. So these are some of the things that I think we should be asking ourselves, like, right? So there are too many ingredients that I told earlier, right? Just like any one rice that you want to cook, right? There's always some special ingredients that actually makes it tastier, right? So just like that, for retiring, right? Basically, the two things. Like one is your health, of course, your health, and also your money. When it comes to health, basically we're looking at two areas. Like it's just not physical alone, right? It's also to be mentally engaged when we do anything. Of course, the other one is your money part of it, lah. It's your ringgit, right? So what I'm saying is that we have to basically stay physically healthy. I think this is a no-brainer, right? It's retirement 101 basic kind of thing, right? So basically we need to plan to stay healthy, right? And you can do your running, your swimming, jogging, whichever, right? And also you need to stay mentally engaged. I think mentally engaged doesn't mean Facebook alone, a one-to-one, a physical thing. Like guys like me, right? I still prefer face-to-face kind of engagement with people, especially, right? Take up new challenges, right? And that's the other critical thing. When I say take up new challenges, I don't know, like Colonel Sanders, right? At 60, I think he started to do investment and do a lot of things, right? Maybe you can take up new challenges. I don't know. Maybe you want to hike Mount Kinabalu, or you want to climb Himalayas, right? Mount Everest, who knows, right? So anything that is kind of like a bucket list for you, right? Do something different, right? The other thing when it comes to the money part of it, right? One thing is you when you're younger, you make your money, right? At the same time, you invest and you make your money from your investment, then you try to start to save your money also, basically, right? So the things that is involved in investing here, basically, it's about diversification, it's about your asset allocation, and also rebalancing your portfolio, especially this kind of market where it's so volatile. But you have time in the market, you have time to actually rebalance your portfolio accordingly also, and not too worry about returns at that juncture, because your investments, especially when it comes to investments in like private retirement schemes, are so beneficial over time, basically. Okay, so the key thing here is one, for you to plan the work and you work the plan, right? So you basically plan what you want to do, and then you actually work the plan itself. So that is the groundwork for your retirement. Okay, that's the groundwork for retirement. Now, I just want to take you back a little bit, right? Go back to our school days, right? I think those who have taken management papers during schooling, or your social science papers, or basic leadership kind of papers, right? Then you will you will know that there is this theory called Maslow's theory of hierarchy, right? Now, this Maslow's theory or hierarchy basically is a 5-stage model that can be divided into deficiency needs and also growth needs. So what it tells you is, just a brief throwback a bit, okay? Psychological needs are basically your basic needs. So any one person, basically, as human beings, we will want to have the psychological needs: air, water, food, shelter, these kind of things, right? Basically, you need a roof over your head, you need food on your table. These are the two basic things. Then you move on again to our next safety needs, right? You move on to your personal security, employment, your health, your property, the income that you make, all that comes under safety needs. Then you have your love and belonging, which is about friendship, about people, about connection and all that. And then when it comes to esteem, go to the next level of your progress in this hierarchy. Basically, you look for self-esteem, for example, right? You look at strength, recognition, and all. You need a tap on the back to say, hey, thank you, man. You made my day, right? That kind of thing. Then comes self-actualization, where you actually go and do things that maybe beyond what you want to do, or maybe things that you dreamt about that you're actually doing it now. So this is the progress. So what happens is that by the time you come to retirement, sometimes you will find that initially I've been moving up the ladder, right? This hierarchy of needs ladder. So once I come to a certain level, come to my retirement, you find that suddenly now for my retirement at 55, I retire, I need 20 years for savings or money so that I can survive for the next 20 years, right? Suddenly you find that I don't have money. What happens is that then basically you fall back in the ladder actually, and you go back to your psychological needs where you still now you're going back to the basics. And one, you need some money so that you can afford yourself food, you can afford shelter, for example, right? So then you start off again. Now it's going to be very difficult the second round. Why? Because time now is a factor for you already. Initially, when you started off when you're young, it's a different story, right? Now to mirror this, actually, there is this book which is called The New Retirement Mentality, written by one Mitch Anthony, actually. So he actually looked at this Maslow theory of needs, actually, and he has put it in terms of looking at it finance and looking at it in terms of lifestyles, basically, right? So he's put it that you have survival, for example. You have survival needs, survival money, you need safety money, then you need freedom money, you need gift money, and also dream money. So this is actually in parallel with Maslow's theory of hierarchy. So here he says that initially we struggle for survival money, which is actually putting the food on the table again. So it mirrors the hierarchy that you actually see in Maslow's theory, actually. So then you have safety money, where for emergency case you need some money, freedom money, money that you can actually spend for leisure, basically. Then you have gift money, right? So on and so forth. You actually progress to the next ladder. So in this case, when we retire, basically, I think it depends on where you want to put yourself, right? Hopefully, you don't have to be going back to your survival money, and you also exceed your safety money, right? So basically, maybe a lot of people actually are able to survive, are able to have money for emergency, but in terms of freedom, spending money at will, basically, right? You find it a bit difficult. Sometimes gift money as parents, sometimes we give, by a certain stage, you're not able to do that today. In fact, the situation is reversed, right? Sometimes maybe the kids are the one who are actually providing money to you. So this is just food for thought, right? Something for us to look back. Now, the discussion today is actually, if you ask me, is pretty basic, right? But it is something that I think should be thought-provoking, especially for those in the younger category. Now, if I ask my son, does he think about retirement? He says, no, not at the moment, right? So if you ask me, a lot of people, especially the youngsters, they'll tell later, next time, those kind of things, that answers actually you get from these people, from this group of people, actually, right? Now, there's nothing wrong, basically, right? Because if you look at this hierarchy of needs, basically this youngsters, basically, they are more into psychological needs, right? So they are actually trying to fulfill the hierarchical needs based on Maslow's theory. So looking at this, we move on now, actually, right? As I said, as I was mentioned during the opening, the questions actually can be put forth to me at a later stage, towards the end. Okay, now the search for retirement solutions. Now, if you look at the global environment, right? Globally, every country, right? Every country is looking for a solution for their what do you call that, for their pension schemes, for retirement for their elders, right? So the World Bank actually came up with this 5-pillar model, right, to assess the country's pension and social requirements. And this is actually a multi-pillar approach, and this basically it is to address the retirement needs of the population, right? So over here you have this 5-pillar. Pillar 0, they call it first one, they call it pillar 0, and then pillar 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so the first pillar is actually a base social pension pillar, and it's basically it is like welfare department, right? Welfare state kind of thing. The second one is public pension plans that are publicly managed. This is mandatory also. The third one is occupational pension plan. The third pillar actually is where EPF, QAP, and all that falls under. It is a pension plan and it's a mandatory plan, so that we have, right? Now, the third one is actually a voluntary personal pension scheme plan. This PRS, this pension scheme plan, is basically private retirement schemes in most cases, right? So these plans, actually, the difference between pillar 3 and 2 is that pillar 3, basically, it is a voluntary basis, right? And PRS and unit trust and some other schemes, basically employer-sponsored retirement schemes, all fall under pillar 3. And then you have the last one is actually more of a sandwich generation pillar. It's a traditional pillar where basically the family take care of themselves, basically. Okay, so this is how globally they have been actually searching for solutions like country to country. Now, if you come to Malaysia, for example, right, the whole idea is they want to increase the income of the retirees, higher income, right? So a few ways actually, for example, Malaysia, we've been approaching this issue actually, right? One is you can raise the mandatory retirement age. I think during my dad's time was 55, now it is 60, right? So I think there's some talk of them increasing it to maybe 62 or 65, right? So that's ongoing. So that part of the bubble actually is right now still being worked out, right? In fact, as I said earlier, it has actually been increased from 55 to 60 currently. You can also raise the mandatory contribution rate to EPF, right? But that is actually is a bit difficult in the sense, if you ask me, my personal take is that it's going to be difficult at this juncture where inflation is so high, cost of food is so high, because this will actually eat up on your gross income, right? So it's going to be tough on the contributors. Now, the next one is, of course, raising minimum age. Now, minimum wage, if you look at current time, right, they have actually increased it to 1,500 ringgit, right? So you find that most of the bubbles here are basically taken up already, but there's one developing voluntary retirement schemes. So this is what is a new scheme that actually came about around 10 years ago. Now, this PRS scheme was actually launched in 2012, December it was launched, right? So basically it took off 2013. So basically you're looking at 10 years, still in infancy in terms of investment, okay? So all this will actually have to contribute higher, generating higher income towards the contributor, right? And why this is so important is that basically higher, if retirees are actually generating higher income, then they will be able to spend better, right? So once the retirees, which the percentage is growing, I think at the moment in Malaysia it's like 7%, and number is actually growing. I'll share with you a bit later, but the number is actually growing. So when the number is growing, and if the population of the retirees are also growing, and the income of this population of retirees actually also do increase, this will actually help in the growth of the country's GDP itself, right? Because if you look at GDP, the components is C plus I plus G plus I, X minus M, right? I plus X minus M. So the C is your personal consumption. So if your personal consumption portion of it, like the retiree spending money, right, increases, then it will actually have a better impact, a positive impact in the country's GDP itself. So these things, retirees do contribute a lot if they're able to actually generate more income and also spend more, basically. Okay. So that is if you're looking at it in more of in the global stance and also in the local context, right? Now, retirement realities, right? These are things that we need to also look at. Now, we must understand people basically are living longer, right? During my dad's time, it was 55 retirement. People look at until 75 and 70 something, right? And if you look at the current time, people basically live longer. The guys live around 73, the women live around 78 years old. And I think even this number is longer. I know a lot of my uncle's friends and all that who are actually in their 70s, still well able, still strong. So they are touching 80 or so, some of them, and they're still healthy and well, touch wood. So this thing, because of better health care and all that, you find that people are actually living longer. You find a lot of people are living beyond 80, right? Queen Elizabeth passed away when she was 96. Mahathir is still at late 90s, still able and well, right? You find that a lot of people are living beyond 80s already at this current juncture, right? Saying that, so if you retire nowadays, if you retire at 60, you have probably at least around 20 years to go, right? Even if you retire at 55, you still have around 20, 25 years there. Now, the other thing is about human nature, right? About human nature. Now, the thing is, if you look at EPF itself, right? Do you know that EPF, the money, once you retire, you can take out the money at 55. That 55, you take out the money, in most cases, right? It can last you only 2 to 3 years, right? So what are you going to do beyond the 2 to 3 years, just generically speaking, right? So what are you going to plan to do 2 to 3 years? At least if you have another savings account which mirrors EPF, different from EPF in terms of the stocks, the funds that you're going to buy and all that, but it mirrors in terms of it is objective for the fund, right? It's about a retirement fund. Then that particular fund like PRS, right, will be able to offer you an opportunity for you to still maintain. If you finish your money in 3-5 years, for example, at least subsequent to that, you still have another 3 to 5 years money from PRS, for example, that you can actually still use to utilize to actually sustain your livelihood. Okay. Now, the other thing is that EPF savings are basically not enough. The threshold for EPF, if I'm not mistaken, is 240. It's not compulsory, like just a number for them, for people to think about. It's 240,000. So if 240,000, if 240,000, then basically if you live for 20 years, it's going to be only 1,000 ringgit, 1,000 ringgit a month. So that is definitely a no-brainer, right? It's not sufficient, right? So EPF now, they've actually re-looking into the threshold. Maybe they're saying that maybe it can be much higher, right? And a lot of them say that maybe 1 million is enough. Maybe 1 million is the minimum that you need for people who want to retire over the next many years. So I want to go back again to the retirement, since we're talking about retirement, right? And it's very critical to know that, hey, even in Malaysia itself, people don't realize, right, we are going towards an aging society, right? Our aging society, we have more than 7%, which is 65 and above, which means we are into aging society. So moving forward, we're going to go into age society, super age society, and all that. They've got all this super name, right? So these are all like showing you the numbers that shows you that hey, the society is going to grow old. Old people are going to live longer. Hopefully, myself, for example, right? So they've done a lot of withdrawal, and by the time they come to retirement, they find that the money that they actually use for savings is going to be very, very small, really, right? So it just shows you that EPF money is inadequate for people to sustain themselves. EPF is a wonderful investment vehicle. It has done extremely well, if you ask me. But it's about the people, right? Have you saved enough? Have you put enough money in EPF, for example? Sometimes it's not enough. To supplement this, right? To complement EPF saving, that's why we actually propose you put your money some investment or savings into this by different vehicles, investment vehicles such as PRS, right? Okay. Now, if you ask me why is there a need that we need to invest, maybe more so than save, right? When you talk about saving, maybe put your money in FD right now, how much you get? Maybe around 4%, 4% plus a bit, right? But then if you look at the numbers, it's scary, right? I think we ourselves would feel insurance has gone up by 25%, property 12%, and then you got healthcare, and then you have education, maybe 10%, right? And food here, they put 5%, right? So you have all these numbers here, which are strong double-digit numbers in most cases. And what we see is that the savings that you put, for example, definitely it's not enough. If you're getting 4% and your what do you call that, your health cost has actually gone up by, let's say, 15% or 20%, there's still a shortfall in terms of how much you can actually, your real money value, right? That's the thing you got to really look at. Now, food here is 5%, but let me share with you. My son actually loves this wonton mee, right? He's crazy about this. And I always go to this particular shop near my house, and I think a year plus back, or almost a year, 2 years or something like that, the cost of a wonton mee was actually 6 ringgit 50 cents, right? Subsequently, over the last few months, from last year onwards, I've been seeing the price actually has gone up to 8 ringgit 50 cents, right? That is the cost of food. That is what, how many percent is that? 20, 30%, I think, if I'm mistaken, right? So that is just the cost of wonton mee. That has gone up by 30%. And our salary is going up by what, 5% or something like that, right? We cannot catch up. We cannot catch up with the cost of inflation itself. It's ridiculous the way you look at it now, right? Things are so expensive, every single thing. Right? Hopefully technology comes about stronger and it can actually help to reduce cost of operating and all that. But as it is now, basically the cost of things have gone up so much. And a wonton mee example is just one example actually I'm showing you. I've got this shop next to me, roti canai shop, slightly increased price, but roti canai is now so small, probably only half half a roti canai compared to last time. That's the truth of the matter, right? So these are things that we really need to look at. And inflation is really a monster that it's an elephant in the room, right? It's going to eat up everything, basically. So just another slide just to share with you. If you look at MACD prices, right, 2012 and 2023, right, you see the MACD value meals, right? So this is around 10 years, let's say, right? Let's say it's 10 years, 11 years, right? So the price of all of these numbers have gone up ridiculously high, right? For example, if you talk about average, I think it has gone up by around annualized, it's gone up by around 8% to 10% annualized, right? Again, you compare with the increase in your increment in salary, for example, right? Can it match up, right? Can it match up? No way it can catch up, right? Because inflation is like Usain Bolt, right? You run 100 meters with him, before you can even start, Usain Bolt actually reached the finish line, right? And you're still running, you're still playing catch up. You need something to support your run, right? You need a booster kind of thing, like a booster jab, right? For you to catch up with the inflation, or in this case, Usain Bolt, right? So what do? You need to invest, right? Savings alone will not be enough. You also need to invest and need to make sure that you get a booster shot to run and catch up with that. But this is not 100 meter, this is a marathon, right? Because you're talking about retirement is about long-term investment. And basically, you have got to do this to catch up. Okay, because of teh tarik I put teh tarik here because teh tarik is my all-time favorite I'm not a Starbucks cake. So it's about teh tarik for me And teh tarik, I think my dad's time was 5 cents. I think now in my place it's 3 ringgit basically. So that itself is cost so much, and the cup is smaller basically. So what is the right amount, right? What do you do? The amount that you can actually save, right? What should you do? What should you consider? Like first thing is, of course, you start early. Right? Now, if you are already 50 years old, for example, now you still have another 5, 10 years to go, right? It's still not too bad actually, right? And basically, if you're touching 50 now, the amount you can actually save now is going to be greater compared to if you're younger, right? Theoretically, So basically, you start early because the advantage of compound interest is that seventh wonder of the world, right? You have a longer time to accumulate. And saving consistently also helps actually, because what's important here is time in the market, and it's not about timing the market, right? One thing we must understand, the time that we have in investment, the longer time that we have, with market being so volatile, right? Market being so volatile, time will actually smoothen out all this volatility. If you look at 1960s, you had the Cuban War crisis, you had the ASEAN crisis in Asian crisis in 1990s, you had the Black Monday before that. You got so many events, right? You got a bubble burst, tech burst, and all. You got so many things taking place. You had a subprime issue. You got so many things that has taken place, right? But over time, even if you look at Dow Jones, right, in time, the Dow Jones still has crept up rather than down, even though there's downside to it. But in time, the market still goes up. Why? Mostly, I think, because of inflation itself, right? That itself actually pushed the price of everything. The other thing, of course, you got to diversify. And also, when you diversify, it's just not about diversifying alone. Right? What I mean here is that when you diversify, let's say I got some money, I buy properties, I buy unit trust, I buy PRS, I buy stocks, I buy bonds, for example. So I mix it up. So it's very critical when you split up your investment, you also understand your risk positioning when it comes to this kind of investment products. Are you a risk taker? Are you young? Are you old? Or do I want to take the risk, right? Why do I want to invest this money for, right? So all that comes into play, and the allocation, actually, asset allocation also is critical, right? You might want to put 10% or 20% in property, 10% in unit trust, 20% in equities, 10% in PRS maybe, right? So you can actually break it down. And at the end of the day, because you also have time, right? You can also evaluate your investments and see whether you need to do some changes in terms of the portfolio that you've been investing into. So how much do you need to retire, right? How much do you need to retire? So if you look at EPF stats and all that, right? If you plan to retire in a few years, basically it's no more 240 lah. You basically, they say that you probably need around 600,000 to retire, right? Not to retire comfortably, just to retire bare minimum lah, basically. So if you're going to retire next 20, 30 years, basically they say that you need 1 million for you to retire. And that 1 million is also bare minimum. So what it tells you is this, it tells you that you'll be a millionaire in namesake, but basically you'll be living the barest minimum, right? That is the truth of the matter actually moving forward. Now we have, if you look at our website, there's one survey that these guys have done with, this principal actually did. And what is the requirement? What is the requirement that most people think that they need to have when they retire? So in most cases, they say you need around 1 to 3 million basically. If you're going to retire in the next many years, right? You probably need around 1 to 3 million. And that is, again, I want to emphasize, it's not being rich, it's basically being barest minimum. So if you say, hey, I don't want to retire here in Malaysia, maybe I want to retire some other country, I want to retire in Australia, for example. Now, I just picked this up recently from one of the articles here, right? Just for illustration purpose. So they say that this particular study survey says that around 40% of them say that if you want to retire, you need to earn, in Australia, you need to earn around 75 to 100,000. So let's say it's 100,000, right? This 100,000 is per year. So which means 100,000 Aussie per year. So you times with what the Malaysian ringgit is 3 point something. Let's say it's 3, right? So you basically need, you want to retire in Australia, basically you need 300,000 per year for the next 20 years for you to retire in Australia. Now, I'm sure a lot of you who actually have joined in this webinar here today will have that amount of money. But if you look at across the board in the country itself, I don't think many will actually have that kind of money for them to retire somewhere else, for example, right? Maybe you want to retire somewhere in Sri Lanka or some other country, who knows, right? But if you want to retire in Australia, for example, basically this is what you need. There's no rule written on stone that saying that this is the amount, because everything is, investment is something very individual, right? Each and every one also have to decide on that. So I take you further, right? If you, this is estimated budget, monthly budget, you take the senior couple, right? So the most expensive place is Klang Valley. Klang Valley is 3,200. So I think then probably if you times with 20 years, you need around 700 or 1,000, right? Alosta is the cheapest place. Alosta is my hometown, right? So which means I have a place to go back. Go back to Alosta, house is there, so no expenses, nothing. I can lead a very smooth, cool, relaxed life there, right? But then there's nobody else there, right? Just me and my wife, probably end of the day. So Alosta, you did 2,600. So that still works out to, I think, around 600,000, right? So it's 600,000 to 800,000, depending on where you want to go and stay. Someone is around 2,900. This is as a couple, right? So it is still, the amount you need is still probably around 600,000 to 1 million if you want to retire over the next few years, right? Here, the numbers I'm quoting you here is because it is, you're looking at 20 years lifespan, right, after retirement, right? So these numbers are actually, if you ask me, scary a bit, right, for those who don't have enough. The other question that sometimes a lot of retirees will ask is about youngsters. They will ask you, so how much should be my income replacement ratio? So the rule of thumb is that you need at least 70%. So when I'm retiring, if I have 10,000, if I'm earning 10,000 ringgit, you probably need 7,000 ringgit after retirement, right? And out of this 70%, basically EPF can cover you maybe up to 30%. Now, this doesn't mean it's true for everyone. It's just generic numbers that we got when studies all have been done. So 30% probably EPF can cover you. And the 30%, if it's true, it can last you maybe 3 years or 4 years, right? Or maybe 5 years, depends on how well you manage it. But there's still a shortfall of 40%. Where does your shortfall come from, right? How do you cover your 40% shortfall? The 40% shortfall actually should be covered with other investment. Like I mentioned earlier, right? You diversify and asset allocate your investment. And long-term investment like PRS must be part of your investment portfolio. For the simple reason is, if you look at diversification as a portfolio, right? But do you ever think about diversifying time itself? In most cases, most people would have invested for maybe 5 years or so, right? Your unit trust, your other investments that you put in equities, or maybe it's around 5 years. Okay, so you stretch a bit, 7 years maybe, right? But you don't have a diversification in time to invest for a longer period of time. You're talking about maybe another 10, 15, 20 years investments. You don't have, right? But the only answer I can see at the moment, right, it's probably your PRS savings. The PRS is going to be a long-term investment. So whatever happens in the short-term investment, you need to diversify, right? You are willing to diversify your products, investment products, but you're not willing to diversify your time, right? Every product that a lot of people invest are only maybe up to 5, 6, 7, 8 years. That 7, 8 years or so is very long nowadays, right? So you do need to have something to cover that 40% shortfall. In the diversified portfolio, you should have PRS as one of the items there. Okay, so this is simple. What happens when you don't save enough, right? It's failing to save enough. At the end of the day, of course, if you don't save enough, it is going to be maybe it's not a disaster, right? But it also kills dreams, like you asked me. Because I had planned to go to Alaska, travel there, take the Alaska cruise and travel, right? You need how much for that? I think what 30,000 per pack or something, right? 20 or 30,000, I think. So I had dreams to do that, but now I'm not able to do that. So you can still survive, you can still sustain yourself, but you're basically killing your dreams, right? And if you look around you, you can find people still working after retirement, right? It's sometimes in most cases not disastrous, right? But it is always sad to see people not fulfilling the dreams in the later part of their lives, especially. So retiring gracefully would really depend on each individual, right? So it could just be a simple thing to retire gracefully, right? It could just be a simple thing. And that simple thing is basically to understand ourselves, right? That is, if you ask me, is the key to everything. Like, it's basically we understand ourselves. We must understand the time horizon that we have. If I'm starting at 50, I have maybe 5 to 10 years to invest. You've got to look at that. You have to determine what is your retirement spending needs. Down the road, what am I going to do? Will I still have my housing loan? Right? How do I cover my insurance? Right? You have to look at all that. You also have to assess your risk tolerance versus investment goals. You might say my investment goal is I want to get a 10% return. But then your risk tolerance, you're 50 years old and you don't have much risk tolerance, for example, then how are you going to get with 10% returns on low risk tolerance, right? If you want to have higher returns, it should be with higher risk tolerance, then you're able to do it. So you must be able to assess all this. Of course, the younger you are, the more tolerant you are. And the other key thing is, if you ask me, is that I think all this everybody knows, right? Everyone viewing this particular session also will know that these are things I know, right? But knowing and doing are two different things. How many of us actually do start early and start doing investment, right? And keep discipline, consistently doing it, right? If I put my money in certain investment products, I see a 5% return, though my investment objective was 20 years, right? Or 10 years, right? I still take out the money, right? Maybe if to rebalance the portfolio is fine, right? Maybe you should be able to take out your profit and leave your principal, for example, or take out the principal and leave the profit, something like that, right? So knowing and doing are two different things that we see. So the other question is, when should I retire? So sometimes you'll come and ask, hey, brother, when do you think I should retire? Right? Of course, end of the day, again, it's an individual thing. You have to look at your financial readiness. You got to look at whether you still have healthcare insurance, loan settlement, for example, as I mentioned, right? Then you got to look at the social connections. Are you able to build strong social connections after that? Because once you retire, even if you have money and you just stay home and do nothing, it's still going to be it's still going to end up as a tearjerker story, basically, right? So the other important thing is, I think it is the readiness for change. The mindset must be there. You must be prepared for change. The truth is that change is the essence of life, right? You must have the mindset to change and move on today, right? So we have to cultivate a well-rounded existence, right? It goes beyond professional accomplishment, right? You got to explore and grow. You got to have mental, emotional well-being. If you look at the slides here, a lot of it talks about sometimes the same thing in a way or two, right? The relationship, it's about social relationship. It's about income that you get, income that you have, revenue that you have. It's about building social relationships, about keeping healthy. Those are simple things, if you ask me. Only those things can actually help you to retire much more happily. So where do you start, right? If any one of you want to do any investment, basically, right, or you want to talk about retirement itself, you should always start with a goal. Yeah, I think life, whether you are young or whether you're old, there should always be a goal. So if your idea is about retirement planning, you must have a goal. Okay, because that goal is what will drive you towards the steps that you take. I remember I saw this video clip sometime back about Michael Jordan, you know, a basketball player, right? He played for Chicago Bulls those days. So he actually said that when he was talking about goal, he said a very simple thing. Of course, I have my goal, right? He said, that's my goal. But it is not the goal that matters to him. It is the steps that you take towards reaching that goal, right? It is the process. It is the journey that you went towards achieving that, being the greatest basketball player, for example, right? The journey itself was what actually made him successful. It is not the goal itself. The goal is there to help him, to guide him, but the journey is the progress, the discipline, and all that actually was what that matters. So over here is similar thing. When you have the plan, okay, I want to travel. By the time I retire at 55, I want to do Alaska cruise. I want to climb out Himalaya mountain or whatever, right? The idea you have that particular goal, and for the goal I need 1 million, right? And it is the process of you, the process of you, the steps that you take towards that is going to be very important actually. So once you're able to do that, when the time comes, you find that there is something there for you at the end of the day, right? And once you have that, you should also plan for your decumulation, which I'll talk about this a bit later, right? So over here, basically, it is the goal, the target, and the process, the journey itself that is going to be very important. Now, saying all that, I'm a bit running out of time, but saying all that, right? Now, let's look at how Principal Private Retirement Scheme, or PRS, helps, right? So the industry itself, you look at the private retirement scheme industry, it's very well governed, right? It's very well regulated. And the person supervising the whole thing is actually SC. I'm not going to go in detail, but just to ensure you that the industry itself is well regulated. So if you invest in PRS, for example, right, if you decide to invest in PRS as part of your retirement plan, part of your retirement journey, there are some benefits to it. Of course, the most important thing, which I think a lot of people lose sight of, is that at the end of the day, you will have money to actually progress further in your life, right? That, if you ask me, is the most important thing. The others are side dishes to you, right? That you have a tax incentive until 2025. If you invest up to 3,000 ringgit for the year, you still get a tax relief of the percentage of tax bracket that you fall under. We also have fund choices. You can have a wide variety range of selection of funds. You have everything, depends on the risk profile. If you're risk averse, then you go for funds which are less risky, right? A lot of flexibility. You can decide how much to put, when to put. I can put 100 ringgit, I don't put after that. So not advisable, but it's still, you still won't be punished for that, right? Disciplined savings, you can do regular savings, you can constantly invest, be more disciplined, potentially higher return, for example. Of course, the other one is also tax, you're protected from creditors, right? So if you got some businessmen who actually are suffering and you feel that, hey, I'm not able to, I probably will have difficulty in financing anything anymore, then you basically can invest your money. Your PRS money is protected from any creditors actually. Okay. So just to give you an example, right? So if you, this is a tax bracket, if you fall under 70 to 100,000 tax bracket, for example, then you fall under 19% tax bracket. So this 19% tax bracket, you times you get 3,000 ringgit. Now, maximum is 3,000, and it must be 3,000 for that calendar year, which means anytime from January to December, you invest, the money accumulates to become, by 31st December, money accumulates to become 3,000 ringgit, you'll have a tax bracket. So if you ask me, this is actually a no-brainer. Why? Because I'm investing money and I'm getting back certain percentage. If I'm under 70 to 100,000 bracket, for example, I'm getting back 19% back into my pocket, basically, right? And I think this is actually a good consideration. This is open until 2025. Subsequent to that, we have to see what the government says. So just to give you a quick understanding of how the mechanism of PRS works, basically it's split. It's if you understand how EPF works, it's similar to EPF, right? You have sub account A and B, 70-30% you have. And 70%, of course, you cannot withdraw unless upon death or permanent departure from country and all. Sub account B is 30%. Now this 30%, you can only opt to withdraw after your first year of investment, right? And after the first year of investment, if you decide to withdraw for housing and healthcare purpose, you're allowed to make withdrawal without any penalty. Okay, EPF also has education, right? But over here is housing and healthcare. If you want to withdraw from account B after the first year, For anything else beside housing or healthcare, for example, if you want to buy a Gucci handbag or anything, right? Example, then there'll be 8%. There'll be 8% penalty on the amount withdrawn, which means whatever amount you're withdrawing, there'll be 8% penalty on the amount withdrawn. Okay, just a quick one to share this. So if you understand the structure here, it is almost similar to EPF structure, right? But EPF is guaranteed. This is not guaranteed and depends, but it offers you a variety of funds for you to invest. So for principal PRS, basically, we have come up with this end-to-end retirement solution. You must understand why we came up with this particular solution is actually because the experience that we have seen, a lot of retirees actually getting the money and just spending the money at the end of the day, right? We don't want that to happen. So stage one is you accumulate your money during your income generating years, right? You generate your money. Subsequent to that, upon retirement for the next 20 years or so, for example, right? We want you to continue to be able to still keep some money, and that money, the balance money in the accounts, will be able to provide you with some kind of income also, right? So we have this particular fund called Retire Easy Income Fund. For those who are 55 and above, we have the Islamic version and also the conventional one. This particular is moderately conservative fund. This particular fund, basically, it plans to generate income over the next many years. So it can create kind of a pension fund for you. Why? Because you can make this withdrawal from this particular fund after retirement, after 55, after you're 55, you can make a withdrawal on a yearly, on a monthly basis. You can do it yearly, quarterly, or you can do it half yearly. You can decide. So upon retirement at 55, right, you say that, hey, I've got this chunk of money from EPF, right? Good. They can settle off certain things. Then on a monthly basis for the next 20 years, I say I want some certain amount of money. Then this particular plan, the decumulation plan from this particular fund will help you, assist you in your journey of the next 20 years in life today, actually. So when you withdraw the money, let's say every quarterly, the balance money will still generate the kind of returns that hopefully better returns, right? So this kind of things is there actually. So it's just not accumulate, but also to decumulate here. So the funds, I'm not going to go in detail. You can actually talk to FSM guys. They will actually be able to talk to you. Now, just a quick one. Basically, for PRS, you can do investments two ways. One is you can do it for me or do it myself. So do it for me means I myself do it for me means I want the system to decide which fund for me to invest in. So that the system will pick for you. The other one is do it myself means I can actually pick whatever funds I want in this table. In total, we have 20 funds, right? So it can be a bit confusing, but we have one or two funds which are very much very well accepted in the market, let's put it that way. So again, I advise you to talk to your FSM guys on this, right? So I'll skip this. This is just basically a chart to show how actually this Retire Easy fund actually works. Right. I'm out of time. Just would like to thank all of you. Any questions?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mahokarai, for the insightful presentation. So now we will proceed with the question and answer session. So there are a few questions over here. And the first question is about at what age should we investors start switching from a growth PRS, which is a much more aggressive PRS, to a more conservative one? Could you share with us more?
Okay. Now, again, this decision actually lies with you. For us, for principal, right, we have funds which are growth oriented, and also we have funds which are more conservative. Now, if you look at the old system, there is a shift from core funds which are growth conservative growth that moves into based on age, right? So if you're below 45, then if you're below 45, then you put your money in growth fund. 45 to 55, then the money will be transferred to your conservative, your moderate fund. And from moderate, 55 will go to conservative. So if you want to look at that as a rule of thumb, then you can look at that 45 and 55. But again, as I said, for principal, we have changed that model of investment already. We don't actually look at it per se in that way. So I would say that if you want to switch from growth to, you were saying just now, you want growth to moderate, is it? Or conservative?
To conservative.
To conservative. Now, if you want to shift, that decision actually lies with you. I think you should look at still how much more time do you have. That is one, right? Do you still have another 3, 5, 6 years to go? then maybe you want to stay longer with the growth fund. That's one thing. You also need to look at what is the market climate at this juncture. At this juncture, if you ask me, market is very volatile, right? The last 2 years has been a lot of geopolitical issues. Market is volatile. So you might say that, hey, my growth, actually, I've already made my money. I want to switch into something conservative. Fine, right? So you look at the portfolio and then you readjust and also look at your risk profile. If you age now, are you nearing retirement maturity? Then you decide accordingly. So there's no one rule to say that, hey, at this age I must shift and all. No, not necessary.
Thank you, Mr. Maho. And then the next question is that can you share how you yourself prepare for the retirement?
How I myself prepare for retirement.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not a rich guy, but basically what I've done is when PRS started 10 years back, right? That time itself, actually, I started to put the money in. And of course, EPF money is there. But the other important thing is that from my earlier days itself, right? I did my degree in social science, but I majored in economics. So that time itself, actually, what I did was I did a lot of diversification and asset allocation. So it comes back to the simple thing. But even those days, I looked at my portfolio of investments, right? And my portfolio investments are different. For example, if you buy unit trust, you buy tech funds, unit trust, for example, right? And then you have China fund, right? And then you have got maybe country-specific funds, right? So you actually need to have a diversified portfolio. And these portfolios will be giving you different returns, right? And it shouldn't go on par. It should decouple itself, like in the sense that if tech funds returns should be different from your China fund returns, for example, right? Because if market is good or market is bad, then different portfolio will give you a different set of returns. So I've placed myself in that, and I've placed that, and also I've done it for over a longer period of time. Normally, I hold it for 5 years. So every 2 years once, I review the portfolio, but every 5 years, my investments will be minimum for 5 years, except for PRS lah. PRS, of course, I started in 2013, and still now we still have it at the moment. So that was my plan. And when I actually started workforce, actually EPF money is there. So my whole idea is similar to what I mentioned just now. Upon retirement, I will use the EPF money to settle off certain debts, high interest rate debts, let me put it that way, right? And the PRS money is there to sustain myself in the subsequent years once I'm out of EPF cash, basically. The other investments that I've done, diversified investments, I've used it over time, right? To buy a house, to buy a car, my son's education. I've actually channeled this money towards solving other issues. For my retirement itself, per se, mostly it's my EPF money and PRS money, and some diversified long-term investment assets that I kept. Of course, you also have properties, basically. Right? So in my case, that's what I've been doing. Like I said earlier, I'm not rich, but I'm basically comfortable.
I see. So if
Yes,
let's say for an advice for a youngster, right? Because for especially like youngster, they are a fresh graduate.
right.
How can they actually are they too young to invest for retirement? And because they for youngster they have a limited of cash in hand. So could you recommend whether they should invest in the PRS or they should go for other investment product that you mentioned earlier?
Actually, you're never too young to invest. Actually, my son started investing. He's 17 this year. I think he started investing when he was 12. I think, if I'm not mistaken. So he's been putting money here and there, but kids, they have different mindset as to how they want to generate income, but which means he has been doing it. So for youngsters who actually started off work and all that now, right? And I believe it is not really the amount that matters. I think you follow what Nike, they say, right, do it now, right? So I think you guys are still young. You think Nike, do it now and start investing now. Where you want to put your money is really up to you, or you can talk to someone who can actually guide you through. But basically, if you ask me for PRS, I think it's a must because it is one of the long-term investments that a lot of people don't think about because they say it can be tomorrow, right? But that is one product that actually forces you to save. If you look at EPF, Without EPF, can you imagine a lot of people, right? You don't actually have enough money to retire without EPF. And why EPF is successful also for the contributors, why it makes a lot of why it makes sense for them, because they cannot withdraw the money basically, right? You cannot withdraw, and because of that part of it, and you're forced to save. That's why a lot of people still have money by the time they retire. Without EPF, I think most of us will be in dire situation, right? So how much you want to invest? Basically, you really need to think how much you want to invest, lah. But you see, as a whole, if you're working, you'll be paying EPF 12% plus 11% is 23%. You already have 23%. So if you ask me, you should have at least 30 odd percent savings, right? So the next 10% you can actually put in PRS, right? If you put in PRS, even if you're earning, if you're putting 100 ringgit or so, it's still fine, right? Because you started off early. And as you all are aware, when you start young, you have time in the market, right? You have time for investment. You find that even the small amount will actually roll over, and it will be returns that you can really see down the road. Okay, why? Because when you roll over your investments, right, then you have that seven wonder of the world thing I talked about just now, right? So start now, and the amount actually is immaterial. You put an amount that you are comfortable with yourself. And I think long-term investments are very critical. Because long-term investments, you really don't have to think about putting a lot of money. You don't have to worry about market up and down, right? You don't have to worry who's going to war tomorrow. Why? Because your money is long-term investment.
So we as an investor, we should set aside of some of the money, maybe a month like that, certain percentage to save, so that for a long-term goal. So this is
Correct.
I see.
Yes.
So
Because you
in
already
your
have
experience, mm,
you have 23% there already. I think if you are PRS, for example, you put 10% aside, should be fine.
I see. So in your experience, why do people think a lot or find it quite hard to decide before investing into a PRS?
I think if you looked at the chart earlier, the Maslow's hierarchy theory, right? You got
Mm,
us the base is unmet needs, right? Your base is you need food, you need a roof over your head, you need food on your table, right? So that is the
yes.
basic psychological need. So a lot of people don't think about investment until you actually fulfill that part of it. So I think a lot of people basically when they start the journey in life, right, they think about food and place a roof over your head, and then plus a little bit stylish thing, right? You want to buy a new BYD car or something like that, right? You think about that because that is your social need, your social engagement, right? So you want to fulfill all that, and then you want to think about investment. But the thing is, if you keep on doing that, then you find that time is no more there already. 10 years would have passed, and you will be thinking, hey, I should have invested early. So for me, if you ask me, whatever the amount, small amount or so, just start putting some aside, right? Why people do that is, as I said, it's human nature, right? If you read through the psychological needs of Maslow's theory, they will tell you that it is part of that. It's natural, actually, right? So it's for us to think beyond that and see what we can do and plan ahead.
I see. So, in the
Yes,
interest of time, I think we will take the final questions. So, the PRS, there is a tax incentive is available until the assessment year of 2025. So,
correct.
what would be the motivation for us to invest in PRS? If let's say the government, whether it will continue or discontinue it?
Yeah, I think I did
Mm,
mention in the presentation earlier, right? Your
mm,
benefits of investing in PRS, right? All that is actually
yes.
side dish, right? All that is
Mm,
side dish. Your main dish is still going to be investment, is still going to
mm,
be return, is still for
mm,
you to retire comfortably, right? If you look at my first two slides, I talked about health and wealth, right? These two things goes hand in hand. That should be the main motive, the main motivation for you to have that particular returns, the health and wealth thing that you are looking for. That should be a motivation. I think why people actually, I think we've been spoon feeding the population too much, right? In the sense that we give them this discount and all that, which is good. No harm. I think it's a good thing that it is there. But you must go beyond that, right? If after 2025, hopefully they do continue. But even if they don't, then you will still be thinking about investing for long term, right? You want to diversify your investment. You want investment which can last you for 10 years, for example. So you still go back to your basic investment 101. So if you ask me why, after 2025, if you don't have, why? Because you still go back to investment 101, which is what? Which is basically invest based on the risk profile. You invest and you generate returns over a longer period of time, because time will smoothen out any volatility.
Okay, one last question. I think this one is quite interesting.
Right.
So for a
I thought that
person
was the
who
last
has
one.
a final last one. So for a person who has
Okay,
already
right.
retired, how should he or she
Right.
execute the withdrawal strategy from the retirement fund to cover the retirement expenses, especially on how to avoid having to sell the fund or withdraw the fund during the downturn cycle?
Okay.
Mm,
Yeah, I think then you got to look at more conservative funds. So those who are already retired, right? And anyway, myself also, I'm soon to retire. Anyway, the thing is, we are, as I mentioned earlier, we have this Retire Easy Income Fund or Retire Easy Islamic Income Fund. This fund is after 55, you can actually withdraw anytime you want, right? I think for people who have retired, you should actually put your money here and because you can plan your withdrawal. You can plan to either withdraw the amount on a month-to-month basis, as I said, monthly, quarterly, half yearly, or yearly. You can plan yourself, right? And you can actually put your money and make withdrawals as and when you need it. You can plan that. So assuming if you have 500,000, for example, you put the money here and you decide, you can tell over the next 20 years, I want a portion of it to be withdrawn on a monthly basis. So the system will actually calculate for you, and every month they pay you a certain amount of money, like a pension, and until the money is depleted. Or you can also decide to say that I want every month from 500,000, every month I want 5,000 ringgit, or every quarterly I want 5,000. The system will calculate and pay you the 5,000 ringgit on a quarterly basis, example, and until the money is depleted, right? So in the meantime, whatever money you withdraw, the balance money will still be able to provide you with returns, right? So which means you don't take out everything, you don't get anything. So this you can do it periodically. Okay, that is, I think, one good plan. So, but end of the day, I'm telling this is in a very generic manner, right? Because each individual is different. I really don't know what is the position of that particular person. But if you ask me, this is what you should do, assuming you still got some EPF money, right, you can use. So every month for monthly expenses or quarterly expenses, you can do this actually. Maybe you still got insurance to pay, you still got a loan to pay, right? So every month he knows his cost is going to be 5,000. So he decides to put the money in this fund, and every month he withdraws 5,000 until the money depleted. So at least he's still generating returns, is it? The balance money will still generate returns for you.
I see. Thank you
Yes.
very much, Mr. Mahokara, for the very insightful sharing. So we will end at here. So ladies and gentlemen, this will be the end of the question and answer session. So if you have any further questions, you can feel free to send us an email at investhelp.my@fundsupermart.com. So the link is in the chat box on our email address. So a replay of this session will be available right after this, where we can head over to our Facebook or YouTube page at FSMY Malaysia to catch this replay. So once again, thank you very much to Mr. Mahokaran for joining us today, and thank you everyone for attending this session. So by this, we will end the webinar and have a pleasant evening ahead.
Thank you, FSM. Thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you, Mr. Mahokaran. Have a good night.
Yeah, good night.